Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Thunderball event in which the Volthrenax is added to the game. As you guys know, I am currently out for about a week or so as far as streams are concerned due to Hurricane Dorian. I'll still be able to get some uploads out throughout the week on various stuff like the event, the new mythic coming out this Friday, and hopefully a few other things like some of the changes with 4.5 and other similar things. But for now, let's just go into this, and yeah, no streams for the rest of the week. But as far as this event, we have the Volthrenax, of course, coming into the game for Glory this week, 400 each, the cheapest you'll ever be able to get Arcane Blade trait stones if you need them for anything, for only 200 Glory each, 400 per pack for the two. And for this, earlier on in the game, you could put them into Astral Spirits and Night Coronet, and later on, you definitely want to put in Cedric Sparkle Sack for the gold gain, and then you'd be able to also put it into things like Princess Elspeth, Taloka, Silent Sentinel for the Silence, and Lord Ironbeard for Red Guild War Day. As far as the troop itself, it's not really going to be that good later in the game. However, for early game and mid game players, it is a pretty good, cheap AoE option. It explodes a gem for a little bit of board control and then deals a bunch of damage to all enemies, boosted by yellow gems. It does have a little bit of a backside that it is similar to all dragons in that it does hit all enemies. This is obviously pretty hard countered by Submerge, but it does have a pretty good boost ratio. So if, on average, you're probably going to be able to get about 3 explodes onto the yellow when you end up doing it, and that's going to be 12 additional damage, which means you're most likely going to be able to hit around 30 or so whenever you end up casting this thing. So that's going to be pretty good from earlier game numbers, and will definitely be a great option for board control while synergizing into higher damage output, since AoEs overall tend to do more damage than single targets due to the fact that they hit multiple at once. As far as the rest of the event, we do have ourselves with our 10% to quite a few things. As far as overlap, we have 10% to all Dragon's Claw and 10% to all dragons, which means almost 20% bonus to the entirety of the kingdom, because almost every single thing within Dragon's Claw is a dragon. You also end up getting 400 additional gold whenever you end up using the Volthrenax in PvP or Explore. These you're probably going to avoid unless you're earlier on in the game, just because it's going to slow you down more so than anything later in the game, but it is still a good utility AoE option if it'll still fit into whatever you're currently using for PvP. So you'll be able to gain a little bit more gold that way, or it could simply just put it into an Explore team, run it with like an Elspeth instant kill and try running it that way. I believe it will take 2 casts instead of 1, unlike a Sunbird or Rowan, but you could still get away with that if you wanted to try for the extra gold, but probably overall not worth bothering in that regard. What is worth going for, though, is event keys. Event keys, there's not anything unique in the event key drop table this week. However, it is a Dragon's Claw event, and because it is a Dragon's Claw event, there is quite a few decent drops. Almost the entirety of the Dragon's Claw kingdom has good troops. Almost all of them are viable. Dragons in general tend to be a pretty good type, even though they don't have a 50% mana start. The main things that are pretty relevant from this kingdom are Divinia being one of the main ones. This is the main legend from the kingdom. It is pretty noteworthy in that it can do every single positive stats effect in the entire game, including the new Reflect that came in version 4.5. It is actually currently the most viable troop in the game to be able to place that Reflect once you have it fully traded. So it's going to be really, really viable for that if you've been wanting to use that new mechanic. Reflect, of course, being a kind of like barrier in that it's single use, and it reflects 50% of damage when you next get hit onto that troop. It does not negate any of the damage, however, it'll reflect 50% of it back. So if they hit you with 100, you'll take 100 damage, but they'll take 50. So it ends up working out pretty good. Also works out pretty good against enemies that hit all enemies, if you can end up getting that mechanic onto all your allies. Pretty hard to get it on, but at least Divinia does it best right now. It's also pretty noteworthy for its high amount of mana accumulation, while also doing a large cleanse to all allies and an HP gain. Other than that, Dragonian Monk is pretty noteworthy. 50% mana starts with barrier to your entire team, while having a lot of barrier spam. Dragatar, while relatively low rarity, still good utility to have as it buffs all other dragons, or including itself, if all dragons on the team, for a decent amount of attack and armor. Pretty much only used earlier on in the game, but still a great utility to have. Egg Thief, you probably see me using a lot. Most noteworthy, it would be used with a Cedric team with a Skeleton Key kind of setup, and just running it with that with a either a Leprechaun or a Greed, and can also be used in pretty much any gold-oriented team in order to just destroy the entire board. Ever since they made it so 50% explosions, or explosion only does 50% mana accumulation, destroy has been quite a decent mechanic, as there are several troops, including Egg Thief, that can destroy the entire board while gaining 100% of the mana instead of 50% compared to explosion. So even though she's an ultra rare, she has potentially one of the highest mana generations in the entire game, given that she can get all 64 value from the board. Alamagrim's the mythic from this kingdom. Do keep in mind, he is required to 10-star this kingdom. It is currently not 10-starable, but starting this Friday when we get the Bounty Hunter event, the Dragon's Claw kingdom will be 10-starable and 11-starable, and it will require Alamagrim to do both of those, so do be mindful of that if you still don't have him yet. So you might want to try for him in the event keys. Other than that, Lord Ember, kind of like a Hellcat, a little bit worse than a Hellcat, but it still serves the same purpose, just under slightly different colors, in that it converts all of a color to red, and it just uses it on brown-purple instead of yellow-purple. Other than that, of course, probably the most notorious thing actually from this kingdom, even maybe more so than Divinia, is the Dragon Soul. He theoretically got indirectly nerfed this most recent patch, in that the quickest soul farming team in the game, while it still uses him, it's slightly slower by about 10,000 souls or so, since there's no longer challenges within the game, so that is a little bit of a nerf to him indirectly. However, he is still the best soul accumulating troop in the entire game, as well as a great early to mid game option, due to the fact that as soon as you get him, regardless of what point you are within the game, as long as you put 4 dragons onto your team, you're going to be able to do 20 damage to all enemies while simultaneously accumulating a lot of souls. So going to be a really great option to go for, and probably the main thing you'd actually be going for in event keys, other than maybe Divinia and the Mythic. So to be mindful of those. But yeah, almost this entirety of the kingdom is a pretty good option. So if you've been saving some event keys, now might be a good time to go use them to try to get a few of those. And that's everything with that. Next thing we have is, of course, the Invasions event. And as of version 4.5, the most recent patch, there is a slight difference to this game mode now. So as far as this game mode, it still plays out pretty much the same. You still have all your towers that you need to kill and everything. Hopefully we'll get one here. Ah, we did not. But basically what will occur now, as you guys have probably seen if you've played a little bit of Invasion so far this week, is Valraven Towers. Valraven Towers are technically a bit of a nerf to Invasions. However, they thematically work, and it kind of seems like something that kind of should have been done in the first place, since it was kind of clunky before. Of course, before, how they were is you could never really see what a Valraven is, because it would never replace over a tower. However, now what they have are these Valraven Towers, where they'll have a 30% chance to dodge, just like a normal Valraven. Of course, we're not getting any now, and we want to try to show one. But they basically just have a 30% chance to dodge, just like any other Valraven normally would have, and it's just over top of a tower. This does make them a lot more annoying, since before those towers, once you reach 4 towers, wouldn't have been able to run away, since they wouldn't be able to be replaced by a Valraven. But now they can, so at least it kind of like fixes it while not fixing it. Well, it fixes it in that we can see where the Valraven is. However, it does have the big downside of now the tower can actually escape from the battle. So we'll see if we can get it on one more. Currently on hotel Wi-Fi, as we can see from the current lag. It shouldn't be too big a deal. Hasn't been that bad so far. But we'll go and try one more. Should be able to get that Valraven Tower. Again, it should be about 1 in 4 battles or so, like most of these game modes. And there we go. There's the new Valraven Tower. So this will be permanent across every single invasion from now on. I believe it'll still even be alongside of whenever they do like special event stuff, because occasionally they do like special events where they have special towers, and this thing would still be appearing then. But yeah, this is the new Raven Tower. It has a 30% chance to teleport away from battle. Most rest of its ability is the same as all the others. However, one really annoying mechanic on top of this 30% chance to run away is also the fact that it destroys all of a certain gem. So if that ends up targeting on, let's say, purple or blue, that would be very, very annoying, since that would increase the chance that it would end up escaping. It also has a slightly lower mana cost than some of the towers, as you can see, at only 16, where some of them go as high as 18. So overall, the entirety of it's just really, really annoying. It also ends up gaining an 8 additional life whenever it ends up taking a skull. So all those factors definitely going to make it way more annoying than it normally would be. However, this is Invasion, so you do have the Invasion troops, which allow you to focus down the Valraven Tower before it can really do anything. And that's generally going to be the way you want to go down, is use your 1 or 2 Invasion troops. Just focus it down with as much damage as you possibly can before it escapes, and then you never need to deal with it before it gets mana and goes crazy. And as you can see, we get the 2 sigils there like we normally would. So it's kind of just a way to make it a little bit more challenging. And overall, not too bad, because it actually thematically works, and Invasion was already one of the best paying out game modes, other than maybe Guild Wars if you were in a higher up bracket. But anyways, that's everything with Invasions. We'll be showing another team with it in a moment, as well as a few other teams for some other stuff this week. But as far as things that are happening, tomorrow, Hall of Guardians, I was going to do Hall of Guardians to Pure Faction tomorrow, but obviously I won't be able to now. But yeah, not really that big of an immediate need to do it. I mainly just wanted to do it because it was a weird number. But yeah, we have Hall of Guardians tomorrow. Not really too special of a faction other than the fact that you can get Gargoyles, Silent Sentinel, and that Arcane Golem. The Arcane Golem for stun, Gargoyle because it's good for low-level delves, and just as for early game in general. And Silent Sentinel because it's a decent silent option for some teams. But you could throw shards at any time. You don't necessarily need the event to be able to do those. This Wednesday, we're going to be getting the Tangela thing, which I believe is just green mastery. The Thursday, we're just going to be having Dragonguard. Dragonguard, not really a particularly over-the-top hero class. It is the best hero class, or one of the best, that has triple damage on skulls or on burning. So it has some potential there. The biggest issue that's holding it back is dragons do not have half mana start. If we were to ever get that, this would probably be one of the better hero classes in the game. But until then, it's still kind of around the mid-range range. But if you're planning on using a bunch of dragons, it could be worth considering to pick it up to get a little bit more level to be able to use it for such. And other than that, this Friday, we will be getting two things. We'll be getting a new mythic that is basically a blue version of Infernus. Should be pretty viable. Highly advised throwing keys to attempt to get it. The big liability that it has is it doesn't have a blue storm attached to it, unlike Infernus, which has red storm attached to it, and Obsidius, which has brown storm attached to it. This one will not have its blue storm attached to it, so you're going to have to waste an entire slot of either your hero with something or a whole nother troop in order to give it the blue storm that it needs in order to function a little bit better. So that's its biggest downside. However, it has higher damage than both of them, so we'll see exactly how it pans out, but it looks like it's going to be pretty solid of an option, so I do advise going for it this Friday. And other than that, we have a Bounty Hunter. That Bounty Hunter, most noteworthy thing about that, it'll play out basically the same as any other bounty hunter. You just use the bounty captain to order the bounty troops and then just like a Yagway or Trickster Shot or, you know, something to keep your team stable for when you reach the later battles. And nothing really too special there except for the fact that it will bring in 10-star and 11-star Dragon's Claw. So if you've been wanting to get that thing upgraded, I believe that gives an extra armor as well off the 10-star. You'll be able to get that this Friday off the bounty troop, assuming you have the Elmagrim and all the other things upgraded from the kingdom. As far as Soulforge this week, we have a couple things in here. 3 mythics that could be worth considering getting right now, and they're all right next to each other as well. Ubistet, Arachnian Weaver, and Megavore. As far as which one of these is the best to get, really depends on what you want. Ubistet is a double instant kill option. I personally don't use him that much these days. Ever since he got nerfed, he's been pretty useless, especially since better delve options have come into the game. Overall, out of these 3, I'd probably say he's the worst, I want to say. While double kill is a fun mechanic, there's just so many better things in him these days that you might as well just use like Essence of Evil even at that point rather than using him. So I don't know, it's just not really something you would bother with. There's not enough good Rashkas to synergize with him. He could have potential into the future, but as it currently stands, I would probably bench him for now, even though he's a good option to eventually have. Arachnian Weaver's pretty far up there, and of these 3, I'd probably have to say is the one you'd want to go for. The main reason for this is it is really, really good for Guild War instances, as well as just a backup plan for various battles. The most noteworthy thing it has is a buff that it got several months ago, where it has a 75% chance to summon a Web Spinner when an enemy dies. What's really relevant about this is they also buffed Web Spinner to have triple damage to basically everything. Triple damage is, it webs every single attack, but also does triple damage to webbed enemies, basically meaning the summon that it has triple skull damage constantly to almost everything in the game. It has the best summon of any troop in the entire game. Obviously, it's not 100%, but pretty close, 75% chance every time you get a kill. So definitely worth picking up just for that factor. On top of that, it has Stealthy plus Impervious, so you're pretty much never going to lose that ability unless you get cursed into a stun, and you have Stealthy, so this is going to be one of the last things that even die on your team. Other than that, it also gets to web all enemies whenever you cast. If I'm not mistaken, it's still the only option in the game that has web all enemies on cast, so pretty viable in that regard. There is an infinite extra turn web that you can do, however, the troop that's attached to is not that viable from Zolkiri, so this is generally the way you go if you're looking for a web option. And other than that, it has some potential in true damage teams, since it does do a decent amount of true damage to the last 2 enemies. Nothing too high, but normally enough to pick things off. Well, and if it does end up getting a kill, it gets a really large amount of explosion, basically like a Gorgolfa, and it just gets to clear out the whole board. You generally want to be aiming for those if you can, otherwise you're mainly just using it for its web mechanic and for its summon, but still a great option to have. And other than that, Megavore, probably most notorious for its really high amount of single target true damage, combined with the fact that it 4 times armor tier. Though if I'm not mistaken, armor tier is really broken right now with Reflect. It's kind of glitched in that I believe it does infinite damage, and by infinite I just mean a really high amount of damage that's basically going to die almost every single time. So do be wary of that once Reflect comes out, this thing is probably going to be really, really bad. I believe they're fixing that next patch, and tweaking it so that doesn't happen anymore. However, at this current moment in time, I'm pretty sure Armor Tearing Reflect is like instant kill to your troops. So for that reason, he's probably a little bit less viable right now. However, one of the main things he's used for, sometimes even more so than his ability, is the fact that he has an 8% chance to instant kill every single time you extra turn. And this does stack with the second one if you happen to already have one, meaning you'd have 8% chance every single extra turn. Not really a mechanic that is ran that often, just because it's really inconsistent. It's so luck-based. However, still a decent mechanic, especially with the fact that it has Impervious, meaning unless it gets Curse Stunned, you're going to be keeping that for a long period of time. But those are the main mythics that are worth considering. And again, if you were to go for one, I would say Arachnian Weaver is your best option of the three. Other than that, as far as unique weapons that you might want to get this week that are just here, Explosion, it's useless. However, you might still want to get it for completionist purposes. Other than that, we have Volcanic Shield, another one that is pretty much useless. But again, you might want to get it for completionist. And the Mace of Claws, which is something that will be showing in a little bit with some teams. It's going to be okay. This again will be pretty good, similar to Dragon Claw Hero Class. Once dragons ever get half mana start, that ends up creating a mix of red and purple for a bunch of dragons. So this is obviously pretty good for things like Divinia, Dragon Soul, Ward Breaker, Element Grim, stuff like that. Obviously any dragon that's going to be utilizing red and purple a lot. So yeah, it's going to be a decent weapon. It fills a little bit of gap since you can replace out Dragatar with this, which is something you obviously don't normally use earlier on in the game. Or you could replace out Sylvania Mora, which is a pretty useful utility dragon. However, more often than not, he's a really slow option, despite being a safe option. So if you wanted something a little bit more offensive that can go at a bit of a quicker pace, you can simply put it into your dragon team with a Mace of Claws instead, with either Dragon Claw or some other hero class instead that gains half mana start. But yeah, you don't have to craft this one though. You can just get it simply through buying up to the tier 3 in Invasions this week. Anyways, let me go show a couple teams real quick. Oh no, we're up against a Truffle. It shouldn't be that bad. So, for Invasions, we have 2, and of course all of these will be in the description below. And that is double of the Invasion troop with the new weapon and Divinia. Basic premise here is that we just keep spamming the 2 frontline troops. We do 5 times skull damage to them each time based on Ascension, or however far you have it upgraded. And you just keep spamming the towers down and win with whatever potions effects you have up to. Should be pretty easy just to kill it out. Invasions are relatively easy in that more often than not, the 2 invasion troops alone can pretty much solo out the entire battle. Mace of Claws will end up feeding your troops back with purple, and will also give some excess red to Divinia. Divinia will then explode all those reds, cleanse in case you have Entangle or some kind of other weird effect on you, and will also give you some life, so it covers pretty much all your grounds, and could also do some extra status effects based on all the extra turns that you end up getting. Other than that, invasions into 1-times. One option that you can go for is somewhat similar team, in that you go and replace out for a Dragatar down there. Dragatar will allow you to gain a bunch of attack and armor that will increase the amount of damage that this will do off of 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times additional damage whenever you end up taking skulls against towers. So you'll be able to utilize it for that regard. Other than that, you could also consider putting into a Ward Breaker here, or if you don't want to go with this weapon, if you didn't buy far enough to go get it, though I do advise getting it just for completionist purposes, just to have it around, and because this weapon might be decent into the future with 50% Dragon Start. But if you're not getting this weapon, you could also go Mang. Mang solo for the event is something that is viable enough that it should work. If you just run Mang with a bunch of support dragons like Dragonian Monk and such behind it, should be perfectly fine to be able to survive for the dragon restriction on it. Next thing that we have is a team that I actually do want to go and use real quick, though against this team, not sure if it'll work. Again, Volthrenax is more of a early game kind of option, but I wanted to show it with a relatively cheap team that most early game players can build. This team is Plague Lord's weapon, which you get out for 250 win just off of Plague Lord, which doesn't take that long at all. You can get that done in a few hours. And Essence of Evil, really great utility item just for completely disabling out a troop. Then we have double of the troop, which you can just buy for 400 glory each. So as long as you have 800 glory, you can go get them this week. And even if it wasn't this event week, it's only an epic, so you should still be able to get it to a decent degree. And of course, we're using this for a little bit of board control and as our primary damage source. And then we have the Alchemist, which is mainly just going to be giving us all the yellow we need in order to keep them going and in order to feed his boost ratio. So we're going to go take a green here, probably go into another green, and just get Essence of Evil rolling. We'll take that down just to get everything exploded. Take our free greens, and then we can just go right into a Essence of Evil. We're going to want to disable one of his bigger options. At this point, I'm not even sure what that is. I guess it's technically Truffle. However, we're going to risk it and go for an Essence of Evil here. Kind of keep it all distributed and just go for a bunch of damage instead. We'll go and convert away all those blues in order to get both of them to full mana. And by both of them with the full mana, apparently I mean only one, because that wasn't enough to get the second one up. If we surge a yellow right here, that should be enough, so I guess we will go for that off of Sky Green. And end up getting the Sky Green, but now we can just go for 2 of these. Probably just going to ignore the Skull since our AoE will be able to kill it anyways. He does gain a 4 times boost ratio per yellow. We could be doing this for a little bit more board control, for example, right over here, and I was just about to click over there. But this will also still explode 4, but it will also end up giving us a skull. So do be wary that you don't necessarily always have to do it at the best location. You could just simply, well, this actually is the best location as well. It happens to be both simultaneously. But keep in mind that you can always just use it more so for the board control aspect rather than aiming at wherever the most amount of yellows are. Though, of course, more often than not, you are going to be aiming at wherever the most amount of yellows are, like right here. But if you see an extra turn somewhere that you can grab, or a really important 3 that you need for mana accumulation, you can explode it like that instead and go for that. So right here, obviously, we're just going to go for the most, but this still isn't too bad because we have a chance for double blue as well for an extra turn, or a single blue to get a little bit more blue mana back. Unfortunately, we didn't get either of those 2 things, but of course we had the chance of it. But yeah, it's an okay option. Not the greatest of AoEs that you're ever going to see out there, but if you don't really have any options for it, it's definitely one of the best, if not the best, of the epic and below AoE options. So nice utility, and this week it's a 400 free gold per battle on top of what you're already gaining. So if you can incorporate it into an early game or mid game team, definitely something to consider. And Alchemist is just one of the easiest things to build it around, simply because, well, it feeds all the yellow you need, and that alone into your dragons, even just literally 3 of them, would be able to take on teams, assuming they do not have Submerge. Do keep in mind that would, of course, be hard countered by any team that has even any amount of Submerge. Other than that, Hall of Guardians, brown-yellow restriction. For this, I'm personally just going to be running Slicer into Triple Gargoyle. Again, Gargoyle, really good low-level delve option. Pretty much always use it. Just a really, really fun option to have. Though, of course, if you really wanted to speed things up a little bit, you can go with a Gimlet into Gargoyles. This will convert all of the greens into browns, and you'd be able to do that to feed your Gargoyle. So either way that you want to go around to do it would end up working out pretty well. Really just depends how far you're buying in potions and how far you're really going in the event. Of course, Gargoyles only run up to about 100 to 150 until you'll need to switch into something more like an Iron Gut team with Mountain Crusher, Iron Gut, and support troops. But this is generally the furthest that most people would go, since you only really need to go to about 80 or 90 in order to complete out the base event for any of the Tuesday events. Other than that, this Thursday we do have the Dragonguard Class event. You'll be restricted to specifically dragons from Dragon's Claw. For this, there's quite a few options that you can end up going for, depending on what exactly your plan is. But centering around Dragon Soul is probably your best way to go. Main reason for this is you can do 20 damage to all enemies every single cast, and you'll be able to gain a bunch of souls along the way. And it's basically just a safe version of it with the Mesa Claws, Divinia in there for the support, the Dragon Soul as our primary damage source, and the Volthrenax to be able to use those blues in order to support the Dragon Soul with a little bit of board control, as well as a little bit more damage. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for this video. If you still have any other questions or concerns, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Again, I will be gone all this week because of the hurricane, so videos will be still trickling out this week, but probably a little bit fewer than normal, and there will be no streams going on. But hope all of you are staying safe from the hurricane, and I will catch all of you later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching. Have a wonderful week.